All right, let's talk about ivermectin. You've definitely heard the name, right? It's been all over the place. But I'm willing to bet the real story, the full story, is way more fascinating and a lot more complex than what you've probably heard in the headlines. So before we get into any of the recent stuff, let's start right here. What if a drug that's mostly known for controversy was also a Nobel Prize winner? Yeah, that's right. This isn't just some hot button topic. This is a medication that's been celebrated at the absolute highest level of science for its incredible impact on humanity. You see, long before it ever became a household name for other reasons, ivermectin was quietly working in the background, revolutionizing global health and earning its creators the most prestigious award you can get in science for saving millions of lives. And look, getting a Nobel Prize, that is a massive deal. They don't just hand those out for fun. The Nobel Committee saw that this single molecule had completely changed the game in our fight against some of the most awful, debilitating parasites on the planet. And that Nobel Prize isn't just some historical pat on the back. It's reflected in its status today. The World Health Organization includes it on its list of essential medicines. That means, long before all the recent noise, the global health community had already decided this stuff is crucial. It's safe, it's effective, and it saves lives. So, how did it earn that stellar reputation? How does one little molecule become this powerhouse, this parasite-slaying machine? Well, the secret is in how it works. It's actually incredibly elegant. It all comes down to a really clever biological hack. Ivermectin goes after a very specific target in the nerve and muscle cells of invertebrates, something called glutamate-gated chloride channels. Now here's the brilliant part. We humans and other mammals, we just don't have those. So the drug paralyzes and kills the parasite, but it leaves us totally unharmed. It's like having a key that only fits the bad guy's locks. And you can see just how widely it's used. This is not some obscure niche drug. It's FDA approved for human conditions, from skin issues like rosacea, all the way to massive global campaigns to stop river blindness. And then you've got the whole veterinary side, where it's an absolute staple. For people, the impact is almost impossible to overstate. We're talking about huge programs that have prevented millions from going blind or suffering from horrific, disfiguring diseases. And on a more everyday level, it's a go-to treatment for things that are just plain miserable, like scabies and head lice. Then you flip over to the animal kingdom, and it's a total workhorse. I mean, it's what keeps our dogs and cats safe from deadly heartworm. And for decades, it's been essential for keeping our livestock, and by extension, our food supply, healthy and parasite-free. Okay, so we've established it's an amazing parasite killer. But what if that unique way it works could be aimed at something else, something totally different? That's the question that has scientists looking at a really exciting, though still very speculative, new frontier: cancer. This idea is called drug repurposing, and it's a huge deal in medicine. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? You take a drug that's already known to be safe, and you see if it works on something new. And with ivermectin, researchers started seeing some really intriguing signals in the lab that hinted it could do a lot more than just fight worms. What they're seeing in the lab is that ivermectin seems to wage this multi-front war on cancer cells. It appears to hit their self-destruct button, cut off the signals they need to grow, and even go after those super tough cancer stem cells that can drive a relapse. It's a fascinating list of potential actions. And this right here is one of the coolest theories. Some tumors are what scientists call cold. They're basically wearing camouflage, hiding from our immune system. The idea is that ivermectin might be able to rip that camouflage off, turning them hot, and making them visible so our own body or powerful immunotherapeutic drugs can finally see them and attack. And believe it or not, the research doesn't even stop there. Scientists are investigating a whole host of other potential uses for this remarkably versatile molecule, really pushing its boundaries in the lab. I mean, just look at this. In the lab, it's shown it can kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes that feed on treated people. It's blocked viruses like dengue and Zika from making copies of themselves. It's even shown some activity against nasty bacteria. Now, I have to stress this is all very early-stage lab work, but it just shows you the incredible breadth of its potential. Okay, so that's the hope. But now we have to take a big step back and have a reality check, because this is probably the most important part of the whole story. There's a massive gap between what looks exciting in a petri dish and what actually works safely in a real person. And this is the challenge for any repurposed drug. A petri dish is simple. The human body, it's infinitely more complex, and something that kills cancer cells in a dish might do nothing, or worse, something harmful inside a person. That's exactly why we have long, difficult, rigorous clinical trials. Which brings us to the single biggest hurdle, the dose. The amount we know is safe for fighting parasites is tiny. The concentrations they're using in the lab to see those anti-cancer effects, they are way, way higher. We're not talking about a small jump, it's a giant, potentially toxic leap. And we just saw a perfect example of this play out with COVID-19. Some early lab results created a ton of excitement and hype. But when the drug was finally put to the test in large, well-designed human trials, the conclusion was clear. At safe doses, it didn't provide a meaningful clinical benefit. And this isn't just about a lack of benefit. There are real dangers to misusing it. Taking formulations meant for a 1,000-pound horse, or just taking unproven high doses can lead to serious neurological toxicity. We're talking confusion, seizures, even coma. Poison control centers saw this firsthand. So what about those human cancer trials? Where do things stand? Well, the results so far are preliminary, and they haven't been the home runs some were hoping for. As this expert puts it, the early data, while worth looking into more, is not yet encouraging to the specialists in the field. So here's where we land. We're left with this fascinating duality. Ivermectin is without a doubt a genuine wonder drug that has saved millions from parasitic disease. That's a fact. At the same time, its future in treating things like cancer remains a compelling but completely unproven scientific question. Both of these things can be true at once. So that leaves us with the big question, right? In an age of instant information, how do we separate real scientific hope from dangerous hype? Well, I think the story of ivermectin itself gives us the answer. The same slow, careful, rigorous scientific process that proved it was a Nobel Prize-winning lifesaver, that is the exact same process we have to trust to determine its future. It's a great reminder to be excited by the possibilities, but to always be guided by the evidence.